It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
For joining in the Falco Takeaway, I got Chris Robin with me. Chris, what's up, bro?
Fantastic. It's 70 and sunny here in Michigan. Spring is here, and I couldn't be more excited.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk a lot about NBA. There's a lot going on in terms of the trades, in terms of the Nets stacking the deck. And now people are trying to blame LeBron for the Nets stacking the deck, because we all know what he did in 2011, taking his talent to South Beach. So with that being said, the first topic we're going to talk about today, is LeBron to blame for the Nets stacking the deck?
I think yes. I mean, and again, I've been on the broadcast with you and other people numerous times. I've made I haven't lied or misled people when it comes to basketball. As a sports fan and as a DFS guy, it just kind of, it's in my deck of cards that I need to know. But when you look back through the history of basketball, let's say the most recent trend in history of basketball, so 10, 15 years, LeBron kind of started this whole thing. If you look all the way back, the bad boys, the Lakers of old with Magic and going against Bird. It was where you were drafted. That's where you played for the length of your career, and that was it. Charles Barkley moved around a little bit. Shaq moved around a little bit with Kobe after the fact. But this trend didn't start until I think it was you or someone in the fantasy, the Worldwide Sports Radio said the real first super team was the Boston Celtics when they did that with Paul, and then who else was it? Garnett and Ray Allen. Yeah, they put that together, and then other teams. It was a very slow process because I don't know if people were embarrassed by it or they were freaked out by it. Now it's boom, nobody cares. It's in your face. And LeBron, when he went to Miami, he said, who cares? This is what we want to do with Bosh, with Dwayne Wade. And they played very well. And I looked back, once you messaged me and you said, hey, you want to come on? I just, some quick little searches, and I found some things. And back in 2017, there was a question posed to LeBron James after the finals a few years ago. As I said, 2017, he said, open and honestly, that he replied, yeah, I've never played on a super team. I don't think I've ever played on a super team. And it was like, as an outsider looking in, I said, wow, is this guy really he's a smart man. He can't be like out of it or like nothing of it, like his crap doesn't stink. But come on, LeBron. And again, that's nothing to be ashamed of. When someone starts a trend, like that, I wouldn't be ashamed of it. I would say, yeah, you know what? I wanted to be on good squads. I wanted, competitive games. But most importantly, I wanted to win. That's all it's about when you're talking about professional sports, especially basketball. So very long way to answer your question. But yes, LeBron did start the whole let's assemble an all-star team. I'll bring my 5, you bring yours, and we'll see what happens.
To be quite honest, this question is utterly ridiculous if you're going to ask me. What happened to self-accountability? What happened to individual responsibility? That's a problem in the society of 2020 and now 2021. There's no self-accountability. There's no personal responsibility. It's he said, she said, and it's the blame game. No one can ever take any responsibility for yourself. You got to blame everyone else because why blame yourself, right? If you want to say now to blame LeBron because of the Lakers situation, because they're the defending champions, who did get better this offseason, who, again, returning Anthony Davis, getting that extension. And Anthony Davis, in my eyes, when healthy, is a top 5 player in this league, LeBron being the best in the world. They added Dennis Schroeder, was probably their missing piece last year. They acquired Montrezl Harrell from the Clippers, which right then and there just really put them on notice. Like the defending champions, the rich just got richer. So if you want to say that's why that the Nets felt like they needed to get Harden and then get Marcus Aldridge, then you know what? Sure, you could kind of say that in terms of their team. But in terms of what he did in South Beach, stop dwelling on the past. People try to act like things that happened years ago, hundreds of years ago, 10 years ago, this and that, is related to what's happening now. Sure, history repeats itself. Sure, things happened in the past that did cause things to happen now. But in terms of LeBron's move, that's utterly ridiculous. And first and foremost, the first ever super team was the 84-ish Celtics with Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. I don't care that they drafted all of them. That is 3 stars. That's 3 all-stars on one team. That is what you call a super team. It doesn't matter how you get those guys together. It just matters that they are together, and that is the definition of a super team. The definition of a super team is that they have to go get together via free agency. However they get together is how they get together. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson are regarded as two of the top 5 greatest players to ever touch a basketball and breathe oxygen. How are you going to tell me that's not a super team? Oh, by the way, with James Worthy, who at one point was an all-star, is a Hall of Famer, gave you over 17 points a game, playing the third fiddle on that team. So there have been other super teams before the Miami Heat. LeBron, in terms of his super team with the Heat, he just approached it a different way than other previous super teams. The Celtics in the 07-08 Celtics, they just traded to get those guys. In terms of the 84 Celtics, they drafted those guys. The Los Angeles Lakers traded for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So in terms of the way the Heat came together, it's a little different. But you can't come to me and say that the Nets stacking the deck is because LeBron did it in South Beach. They were still going to do these things anyways. And to call a spade, these moves are definitely getting a little overhyped. Well, Marcus Aldridge, he's not really fitting in that offense all that well. He's going to put the ball on the floor a little bit, shoot a mid-range. But in terms of that Nets offense, they need a big to go and catch lobs. A guy who's going to play down low, catch lobs, and play inside, which is not what Marcus Aldridge is going to do, especially at this age. So in terms of their roster, it looks quote-unquote sexy on paper, but to blame LeBron for this is just utterly ridiculous and just a lack of self-accountability.
Before we move on, I just want to say that I also this morning or early this afternoon, I read several reports or just articles. The one most importantly on Yahoo, I believe, where it's known now that LeBron is kind of in Steph Curry's ear. Hey, if you want to come over, you can come over because his contract with Golden State is up at the end of next season, if I'm not mistaken. So whispers and talking and trying to assemble more pieces to the Avengers is going on right in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But it's just like no matter what happens in the league, everything's a reflection to LeBron. Whether who wins, what via free agency moves, trades, it's a reflection to him. And it just really goes to show that nobody can keep his name out of their mouth, that every little thing that he does is a reflection on the rest of the NBA. So all in all, to blame LeBron for this is a little much for me and a little ridiculous. But I want to talk about a similar topic, but not necessarily the exact same thing. The Nets, they are clearly the favorites now. They're stacking the deck with that big three. You could say before Kevin Durant got hurt, you could have said he was in line to win MVP. Kyrie Irving, if you're going to ask me, I believe he should probably win MVP. And a lot of people have James Harden to be the favorite as MVP. So you got 3 MVP candidates on one team, and Kevin Durant being a top 2 player on the planet Earth, plus the addition of Blake Griffin. Joe Harris is shooting about 50% from three-point range. And then you got Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge now. So, I mean, it's clear to say that they're the favorites and they just overly stack the deck. Like, they are beyond a super team. Would a finals MVP for Durant and another ring for Durant be just the same thing as what he did in Golden State?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you look at what's going on with the Nets, KD, this is stuff everybody already knows. KD, 11-time All-Star, Harden, 9, Kyrie, 7, Aldridge, 7, and Blake, 6 times. So that's 40 All-Star appearances, collectively throughout everybody here. And if Durant were to win the MVP, sure, does that tarnish his legacy? Does it not? But I'd like to ask you, they say the old saying is beauty is in the eye of the beholder, or we all have my self-esteem is mine and yours is yours, and you can't, put that emotion or that your opinion on me, right? So from everything I've seen personally and what I've read, Durant is happy as it is. He's very content with what he's done and what he's doing. And he said, there's a tweet, you can find it. I don't know how far back it goes. I could probably scroll down while we're here. But he said, there's nobody on earth, that's going to make me do anything I don't really want to do on earth by myself, which is kind of like, second guessing in a way. I'll never be able to do anything that I really want to do on earth by myself. So that is meaning that, he's okay with being a part of a team. He's okay with playing in these situations where he doesn't have to do everything and anything. But has Durant ever done anything on his own? He's always been a collection of very good teams in Oklahoma. And he went here and there. He's there with the Nets. So as long as Durant is like, oh, I'm cool with what's happened. And as long as he says, you know what, my legacy is fantastic, I'm happy and I'm content with what I've done, and I don't care other people's opinions, and I don't really, mind what you guys are saying. Isn't that all that really matters? If you're happy within, what's everything else matter?
Do I think it's the same as Golden State? I can't really say that. There's a difference here. What he did in Golden State is he joined something that was already special. They had a championship culture. They already won 67 games and won the finals. They already won and they won 73 games, broke the all-time regular season record. And they were already a championship team without him. We already knew what the Warriors were, and then it just airdropped in Kevin Durant. So we knew what kind of system he was joining. What the Nets had, we don't know what happened. We don't know what was going to happen. So many people said Kyrie and Kevin Durant are just toxic people, that they're not going to be able to New York media. It's never going to work out. And I made a take on this. The day James Harden got traded, I said, the same people are going to say that this move is not going to work, that this is never going to work. Those same goofballs are going to turn around months later and say this is not fair, which is exactly what is happening right now. So there's literally on record, I'm on record saying this, that this actually happened. This is not my opinion. This literally happened. So with that being said, I don't think it's the same thing because the Golden State, he put himself in a situation where it was impossible to lose, and nobody knew what actually was going to happen. And as high as I've been on the Nets, and everyone who knows me has been following me knows how high I've been on the Brooklyn Nets, we don't know how he's going to come back from injury, and we don't know how James Harden's going to be in the playoffs because James Harden has a history of choking, this and that. So you can't really get up there and say that this is not fair. They overstacked the deck. This is going to be the same thing as Golden State. So not only that, another thing that we need to take into consideration, what team you play for and what franchise you play for in the NBA, I think that matters. The Golden State Warriors, sure, they're not necessarily the biggest market. It's still a California team, this and that. But winning a championship in Brooklyn, New York, the nation's media capital, that just has a different feel and a different vibe to them because they were in New Jersey, which, again, they never had a championship. Now in New York, bring a championship to New York basketball, who's never had that. Sure, it's not the same as it would be if it was with the Knicks, but I think that still has to, that's still something you need to take into consideration, that he is doing it in New York, and it would be the first title in New York. So for me, I think it's a little bit of a stretch and a little bit of an exaggeration to say that it would be the same thing as Golden State because the situations are different. Sure, you could say that they're top heavy. This is a more top heavy roster because it's 3 top 15 players. If you want to even push Kyrie closer to the top 10 versus the Warriors with Steph is obviously a top 3 player, and then you have Klay Thompson, who's a top 20-ish, 15 to 20 player. So you could say the top heavy wise, this Brooklyn Nets team is better and more stacked, but I don't think you can really say it's the same thing. I still think you could still say that Kevin Durant really can't win without a stacked team because his team is stacked, but I wouldn't say it's as ridiculous as with him joining the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And if the way today is in terms of social media and everybody has access to everything at any moment in time, if you look at what LeBron did last season when they won the championship, I still hear about it. There was a Mickey Mouse title. I'm sure you've heard it, and it's awful. And it's all large groups of people can sway opinions so fast. So, do you think these professional athletes, or do you think I'm going to be swayed by someone saying, "Chris, you were awful on this broadcast. You just don't belong talking on a microphone in front of a camera"? No, I have my own personal opinion, and at the end of the day, that's all that really matters is how I feel inside. So for Kevin Durant or for us, the opinion of media or broadcasters, whatever we have going on here, that it's great to talk about, but in the grand scheme of things, it's in the eye of the beholder, as I kind of alluded to when I talked moments ago. So is it the same? Absolutely not. 2 different situations as you posed here. And when all is said and done, Kevin Durant's the only one that's got to walk around with the burden on him or not. And what way are you going to, go off into the sunset? How are you going to act when all is said and done? Because when you look at it now, everything is pushed. All these ideals and these silly opinions are pushed on other people. Therefore, nobody has their own opinion.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that Kevin Durant personally is going to be annoyed by this, going to hear the noise that he still can't win with the stack team? Because we know Durant, he is chasing LeBron. He is chasing LeBron. He's a wannabe LeBron James. I don't know how else to say it. Call spade a spade. He wants to be LeBron James. He wants to catch him as the best player in the world. He wants to catch him on the all-time list. Be a top 10 all-time great. Be a top 5 all-time great. But the way people are going to acknowledge that is winning in a certain culture. What really put LeBron on that certain echelon was the championship in Cleveland. It's Cleveland, Ohio. He's from there. A city that hasn't had a championship in 52 years. The team he beat. But I think this year, even if the Lakers did get out of the West, which with their injuries, it really looks not that certain right now. I don't know if that's really going to make a big splash in terms of how people are still going to look at him. But since the Lakers are so much better than that Cavs team, and people don't really know how that Lakers and Nets team would match up in a finals. We knew in Golden State and Cleveland, we knew how they were going to match up because 2016 it was a 7-game series and it came down to one possession at the end of the game. And then you just airdrop Kevin Durant and replace him for Harrison Barnes with basically identical rosters. What the hell are you going to expect? And then the year after, the Cavs just lose Kyrie Irving. So really, what are you going to expect? So I think there's still more to gain for him this year if he could win in Brooklyn, because it's Brooklyn. It's not a team that we know what's going to happen. They're just very stacked. We don't know how it's going to gel. We don't know how Harden's going to translate in the playoffs, this and that. So I can't really say that this is going to affect him the same way, but it still kind of goes to show that he can't win without a team. I mean, head over heels stacked is call a spade they are.
From what I know, for what we know, it's commonplace. We know Durant he's very how can I put this? He's very interested what other people have to say. If I'm not mistaken, I remember a time where he created all these burner accounts to troll people that were putting him down or saying you stink or you're not as good as this player. But these professional athletes, especially in basketball, they're so competitive, and it's all about counting stats, box scores, championships. And I guess what I'm trying to get at, what I'm trying to say is he going to let the opinion of other people put him down, or is he going to let other people put him into a place where he disagrees with his own kind of stats and what he's done? Because again, I think much like me, much like you, what I think is all that matters about myself, my self-esteem, my confidence. That's all that really matters. Am I going to let a group of people that I don't know, that I'm never going to meet, that I'm never going to talk to, fake people for fake internet points on social media or in actual media on microphones, tell me that I don't belong, or they're going to tell me that I'm not a good basketball player? Am I going to listen to that nonsense, or am I going to be confident enough in myself to say, you know what, I did it, I lived it, this is what it is, and this is how it went, and I've got to believe that the human being himself is more powerful than a group of people calling for Mickey Mouse rings and you're part of super teams and all these buzzwords and nonsense.
I mean, that'll definitely, I understand where you're coming from. I understand that it's all about what he's going to think at the end of the day, but we see that Kevin Durant is arguably probably the most thin-skinned, sensitive superstar we have in team sports today. But in terms of, that's the Eastern Conference. The Western Conference, LeBron James, Anthony Davis out right now. The Lakers are going to struggle a ton. They have a really tough schedule coming up. But the big thing is, what about the Clippers? The Clippers did get better this offseason, as people are not really acknowledging. They blew out the Bucks yesterday without George Paul, without Serge Ibaka, without Pat Beverly. Are the Clippers now the favorite? I said on last week's show that they should have the most pressure on them to deliver, especially Kawhi Leonard. Like, there's no reason why that the Clippers shouldn't deliver, even if the Lakers come back. We don't know how LeBron's going to come back, if and when he comes back. We don't know if Anthony Davis is going to come back or when, and how that's going to turn out. So, in terms of the Clippers, are they proving that they're the favorites and they're probably going to get out of the West?
Yeah, if you look at, and again, this is simple to me, that the winning streak is what changed everything for me. In the last, I think their winning streak started, if I read correctly, in March 20th. The Clippers, their offensive rating of 126 points per 100 possessions, which is by far and away, it looks like the margin that separates is like ranked through 2 through 11 here. Their defensive ranks are, what is that? Well, I don't even know what I'm reading here. But the winning streak that they're on is kind of changing everything, not only in the Western Conference, but for them personally to match up with the Lakers. They're definitely building something here. They're getting comfortable with each other. And those are big. I mean, when you score points or you're on the court or, team building exercises, whatever, fancy way you want to say it, everybody learning to play with each other and improving all these numbers, and the attention to detail is what sticks out for me. And it looks like, Kawhi Leonard said that exact same thing. But when they won Saturday in Philadelphia, that meant giving up 0 transition points to one of the teams that has the most transition points in the NBA. So what the Clippers have done has been fantastic, and I personally believe it's changed everything, not only in that division, but in the Western Conference here.
I love what the Clippers got going on right now. They should be the favorites in the West. And right now, as we speak, they look like they're going to get out of the West. Yes, even over the Lakers, regardless if LeBron and Anthony Davis come back. First and foremost, the Jazz, sure, they have a nice Cinderella story. They don't have championship pedigree. The Phoenix Suns, great Cinderella story, don't have championship pedigree. The only team in the way of the Los Angeles Clippers is the team that plays in the same building, the Los Angeles Lakers. That is if they are healthy. When LeBron is I can only go by from what we know. LeBron has had one other injury in his career, which we know the groin injury his first year with the Lakers in 2019. When he returned, they were 2 games out of the 8th spot, and he was the worst I've probably ever seen him in my lifetime. I think that was the worst stretch of his career, probably since literally his rookie season. Times where he had those fluke games, you make those rookie mistakes. He looked disinterested. He looked like he didn't want to be there. All he cared about was getting rid of the young guys for Anthony Davis. It looked like he just wanted the season to end to take a break and have a nice long summer because he played in 8 straight finals before that. So that's what we know in terms of him recovering from injury. Again, he's still I would still call him the most reliable player in the NBA. I know he tried to play all 72 games, which ultimately could have been a reason why that he ended up getting hurt. Anthony Davis has just been a guy who's been an injury-prone guy his entire career. Now he's got that calf injury, that Achilles injury. I don't know how he's going to come back. The closest thing we could see from that is what happened with Kevin Durant's situation. That was a hot mess. And look what happened. He ended up coming back too soon. He tore his Achilles 1 quarter into the game. So with that being said, there is no excuse for the Clippers not to get this done. And right now, as we stand today, they're the best team in the Western Conference, without a doubt. They're better than the Jazz. They're better than the Phoenix Suns. And yeah, they're better than the Lakers because they're just banged up and we don't know what to expect from them. And the thing that I like about this is Kawhi has a lot of pressure on him. He does. But I think 2020, the Clippers really had the pressure on them, and it got to them, which is why they melted down. All year long, the narrative was Kawhi's the reigning and Finals MVP. He's the best player in the league. He's better than LeBron. He came at LeBron with those commercials, the crown keychain. LA's his city. This is Kawhi Town. Opening night, gave LeBron the business. Really, he was in his bag that night. Christmas Day was in his bag. Gave it to him again. And the Lakers was waiting for a date in the Western Conference, which is what we've been waiting for all year long. Since Kawhi and George Paul went to the Clippers, all we cared about was the Battle of LA. Then we have the 5-month layoff where there is no basketball, right? This was their opportunity to get it. And the last Sunday of the season before it got shut down, the Lakers beat the Clippers when the Clippers were the quote-unquote home team. So all the hype was leading up to it, and then the pressure got to them. They melted down in 3 straight games. This year, they don't have the title expectations that they did last year. Last year, they were the favorites. Kawhi had that pressure on him to deliver. This year, it's more of the Lakers' pressure. They're defending champions. They got better. They should be the ones having the expectations to. They need to get it done. They need to win. Now with the Clippers situation, I think there's just a little less pressure on them, which is why I could see them delivering. There's no more Doc Rivers. I think Doc Rivers did not help that situation. Serge Ibaka, who's played in the NBA Finals before, and they have championship pedigree. So I really think, as of now, the Clippers are the favorites to get out of the West, and the only way to say otherwise is if the Lakers get healthy sometime soon, which it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon, and LeBron and Anthony Davis look like their championship form that they did last year. If that's not the case, I think the Clippers have their best opportunity to get out of the West and make their first ever Western Conference Finals, and this is going to be a legacy moment for the great Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi wants to be in that class of greatness, winning Finals MVPs for 3 different franchises would be an historic mark. The second player to do that behind LeBron, who did that last year. And then with that being said, you could also look at the franchise that they played for, the Clippers, a team that had nothing. Kawhi was the guy to do it in Toronto, Canada, who was a city who had nothing, and then doing it in a Los Angeles, a big market. But again, a franchise who the second fiddle, the team that plays in the quote-unquote basement. So there's a lot of pressure on Kawhi. And then if he doesn't get it done, you could say this move was an entire bust.
100%. I'm with you 100%. They're like the redheaded stepchild organization of LA teams. And when I look at just overall, just an overall team kind of sport, teams get hot and they connect, and you can throw a guy into the mix like Blake Griffin in New York or LaMarcus Aldridge in New York, and that's all well and good because they're good for the marquee and they're good at face value on paper. But these teams have to have chemistry, and they need to gel, and they need to mold, and that's what the Clippers have done the last month or so, even since probably the beginning of March. They've come together on the fly. And I'd like to say that it was unexpected. I mean, everybody in the organization, the front office, head coaches, and the players knew that they could do this. But it's easier said than it's done. And they've come together, and they're starting to hit on all the right cylinders at the perfect time. What a perfect time to make a push here. And it looks like they have a pretty substantial homestand coming up through the next few weeks. And that's going to make or break what they're trying to do, as Batum said. So I'm very much looking forward to what the Clippers can do. I believe it's an 8 or 9 game homestand, and we'll see if they can put it together and keep this moving through their homestand. Then sky's the limit for the Clippers.
Right. In terms of the Clippers, I mean, they've really had the perfect opportunity. I mean, in terms of a championship pedigree, I mean, it's basically held on a silver platter for them. Like, here it is, deliver, get it done. If you are the guys that tried to make us to believe, this is the perfect opportunity for them to get it done, if you're going to ask me. But to switch topics, I want to talk about the MVP conversation real quick. A lot of people say Nikola Jokic, even though his team isn't that great. James Harden, a lot of people are trying to say he should be the favorite. I have the unpopular opinion that Kyrie Irving is making this case. Chris, I'm going to ask you, who do you think right now is the MVP?
Well, I think it's like, how can I put this? Like Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. If you can cut your odds down, that helps drastically. So I'd like to say that the MVP will be from the Brooklyn Nets. So that helps, state your cause here. I think it's going to be James Harden. That's just, I've made no bones about my crazy fandom for NBA. I'm just a casual fan. I read the articles and I'll flip a game on when I'm watching, but I like to read what the players say about each other. And Blake Griffin, since joining them, it's right here. It's crazy. This is him. This is Blake Griffin quote. It's crazy. He just makes the game so easy for you, and draws so much attention, said Griffin. But at the same time, you obviously look for his assist numbers, and they're unbelievable as well. So you get what essentially was an outsider, Blake Griffin, from the Detroit Pistons come in, and within a few games, he's in awe. He's a superstar himself. And when you get a player on your own team, a teammate talking that way about another player, I think that is what's more important than the sports writers or the broadcasters on TNT, TBS, what Charles Barkley is saying, pregame or at halftime here. So I place most stock and most important in what the other players are doing. That's why I think I've long said, MVP voting for all sports or all-star, it should be collectively asked upon the league, not just random people like us. I mean, I'm a nobody. Why would I have any why would I want to vote for that? There's nobody around that wants to listen to what I have to say. So it's to me it's James Harden, and I think it's close, but he had 44 points on Friday. Everything he's doing, it just looks so simple and so effortless. And I guess you could say, I'm arguing my own point, but I guess you could say it's pretty simple when you're playing on a team with all the adulation that they have with Kyrie, with Blake Griffin, and Durant there. But to me, it's James Harden. It's what he does. I mean, again, I won't even get started. You mentioned it yourself that he chokes. in big games or in playoff series. But as it stands right now, that's not the question. You said who would be the seasonal MVP, and to me, it's James Harden. The guy's been playing lights out for quite some time now, a couple months on end.
Here's the thing. Nikola Jokic, as great as his numbers are, would be the MVP, but his team is simply just not winning enough, and we know how the MVP works. If you're not a top seed in either of your respective conferences, you're probably just not going to get the nod. This is an unpopular opinion. I still think Kyrie Irving is the MVP of the league this year. James Harden, we still have to take into account that he did literally quit on the Houston Rockets. He quit. He showed up fat, really fat, and he wanted out and demanded a trade, and he got where he wanted, and since then he's been balling. Got to give him his credit where credit's due. But in terms of Kyrie Irving, I understand that he missed 7 games, went missing in action, then he took a few games for personal reasons, whatever the case may be. Do I agree with it? Am I fond of it? Absolutely not. But what he's doing this year is just simply, he's a magician. What he does with a basketball in his hand is just something I've never seen before. He's giving you 28 points a game on 52% shooting from the field, on 40% from three-point range. That's what he's doing right now. And let's take into account that he takes tougher shots than any player in the league and still puts up those type of efficiency numbers. Nobody can guard him. He's the most unguardable player in the NBA. More unguardable than a Kevin Durant, more unguardable than James Harden, 100%. That's what he does on the floor. Not only can he shoot the free ball from with 40% percent from three-point range, he does it in traffic, does it off the dribble, has that nice slide step that he does. He can get to the rim and his magicianal acrobatic finishes, whether there's 1, 2, 3, or 4 defenders in his way, he somehow could get those shots off. Not being a very big guy, could stop on the dime, shoot the mid-range, created a post-fade bank. I still don't know how he creates space to get that off. The way he could get to his spots and just score so effortlessly at his size is simply remarkable. It is unbelievable. And the only thing people can really take into account why he isn't the MVP is because of Kevin Durant and James Harden. Well, number one, Durant, Irving, and Harden only played 7 games together the entire series. So that's one thing that we got to take into account. 2, most of the season it was just Durant and Irving. And then when Durant got hurt, it was basically just Harden and Irving. So there's one other all-star by your side, which is very normal in today's league, which I don't think guys should be held accountable for that because he's still putting up those type of numbers and he's still getting to his spots. He's still putting up those type of scoring numbers. And mind you, his playmaking, sure, he's only giving you 5.5 assists a game, but in terms of his passing skills, this is the best I've ever seen from him. It is. This is the best I've ever seen from him. And Kyrie just has a lot of haters. People don't like the way he acts towards the media. They don't like the things he says. They don't like his antics. But if you could take all that and push that to the side and what he's done on the basketball floor, in my opinion, if I had a vote, which I don't, I am a nobody, I understand that, Kyrie Irving is the MVP of the league.
You know, that reminds me of, I'm always thinking and writing stuff down, and I get out of control sometimes filling up notebooks. And I've noticed a lot, people say, fake it until you make it. Like, that's a big one. If I say something, loud enough and enough times, other people around me or other people that are listening to me will agree. If I say, I'm a professional football writer, I'm a professional basketball writer, and if I say it enough times, although it's not true, and I know it's not true, if I say it enough times, it's going to pick up some steam. And sooner or later, people are going to go, they'll start, is Chris, is Chris what he actually says he is? And the only reason I say that is because, Harden is talking like that right now. He said, quote, I feel like the MVP. It's just that simple. I don't want to talk. I don't want to speak individually on myself. I'm just going to leave it at that. So the more you can kind of gas yourself up or pump yourself up, people around, the important people that make these kind of decisions and your own teammates and other, colleagues in the NBA, they're going to take notice and say, if Harden is going to talk like that, then maybe we should start to believe him. And I'm not, I say, fake it till you make it. Harden's not faking anything. He's unbelievable, on the hardwood. But if you say it enough times, it's going to pick up steam and people, it's going to be like a freight train and you're not going to be able to stop it.
I mean, that's kind of how it goes. Once the media starts saying it, then it picks up around the league. I mean, Giannis, again, he's putting out the same MVP-type numbers, but he's got a disadvantage because not only is he the back-to-back MVP, he's now dealing with voter fatigue. He would be the second player in NBA history to to win 3 straight MVPs next to Larry Bird, so the media wants to avoid that. But in terms of Giannis's numbers, he's not really doing anything different that he's done the past few years, except the Bucks were the 1 seed. Those years he did win the MVP, which the media, again, loves to give it to a team that's winning. So with that being said, that's going to wrap up in terms of our MVP conversation. But to flip the script real quick to the NFL, the Chiefs get the last spot, they get the top spot in terms of the favorites over the defending champion Buccaneers ending the 2021 season, despite the Tampa Bay Buccaneers return all 22 starters. What do you think of that? Should the Bucs be the favorite, or do the Chiefs really still deserve that top spot?
This is unbelievable to me. And, you said what I was going to say. They re-signed all 22 starters from both sides of the ball. It's unheralded that does. People peel off and they go elsewhere. But they all came back here. So why would anything be different last season if it is this year? The Tampa Bay really made Kansas City look silly in the Super Bowl, 31-9, I believe the final score was. And they have everything back. Nothing has changed. So to me, Kansas City is now, they're making all these roster moves. They've completely obliterated their offensive line. Guys left, guys retired. So Kansas City is essentially trying to make free agent acquisitions, draft. They have to do, to me, like they're catching up. They're trying to keep pace, with Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay's just, we have the same guys. We can do the same thing. We know what we did, and we know how we got to where we were last season. We just have to kind of keep that same pace, keep that same MO, and here we are, and we'll get back to where we want. So for people to say that Kansas City is the favorite over Tampa Bay, it's not. It doesn't make me flip my top, or it doesn't upset me, but I just find it silly that you can do that. Why? Is it because of Patrick Mahomes? Is it another, a sophomore season from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who really didn't do much? Not all his fault, but it's all based on Patrick Mahomes, and it's all based on, I'd like to think, correct me if I'm wrong, it's this media frenzy where Patrick Mahomes signs a $500 million contract. He's in all these State Farm commercials. He's the darling of NFL football right now, and I don't even think it's close. So if the more they can kind of create this mystique or this buzz around Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes, then all will be well. Because when you slice it down to the bottom of the barrel, when you take everything away, football is about money. It's a business. They want to do what's best for their brand, for their business. And right now, it's Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady, you could say he's had his day in the sun, but he's still in the sun. He's still winning Super Bowls. This guy is unbelievable. But to me, Kansas City is just a bigger draw. Tampa Bay, it's the same old Tom Brady, father time, he's the GOAT, whatever other words you want to toss out there. It's kind of stale, if I may say so. Winning over and over again is stale. Never thought I'd see the day where that happened, but Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes is still shiny. It's still exciting. So why wouldn't they kind of annoy Kansas City as the favorite heading into this coming season? I disagree with it, but I understand it from a media perspective, what we're doing, what people are writing about, and what people are talking about. Betting, TV deals, everything is money. Money makes the world go round. It makes sense from that point of view, but when you look at something, when me or you are so passionate about what we're doing here, we can clearly see that it's not right. It doesn't make sense, but who am I to go against the big money machine of the NFL?
I don't believe that just because the team won the Super Bowl doesn't mean they should be the favorite. It doesn't mean that they were actually the best team in the league. It means that they just won the championship and they won those games. And yes, that can be an upset. With that being said, number one, it is so hard to repeat in the NFL, which it's not something that we'll see like the NBA, how often we see repeats or a defending champion is the favorite in that aspect. The last time we saw repeated champions were the Patriots. I understand Tom Brady was the quarterback of the team in 2004 and 2005. So the odds of them repeating are so slim. And again, Brady is getting a year older. Sure, it doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. It looks like he will literally play till 50 years old. But it's still just so difficult to win in this league, and especially repeat as champions. That's number one. Number two, the entire Chiefs' offensive line was hurt in the Super Bowl, and that was the deciding factor. That is why they got so beat down on the offensive side of the ball. Patrick Mahomes ran for 497 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That is not an opinion. That is not my opinion. That is a fact. Right. I did not make that up. That explains enough right then and there of what he had to deal with. He was dealing with a toe injury the entire playoffs. He just got surgery, so he wasn't entirely healthy. So, and again, I think Mahomes is one of those dudes in sports, which there's. I always say that there's 3 of those dudes in team sports today that have that eye of the tiger, who have that swagger, who have that don't poke the bear. They always fight back. Mahomes is one of them. Tom Brady is one of them. LeBron James is one of them. In 2019, after LeBron got hurt with the groin injury, they said he's washed, he's unathletic, he should just retire. He's in LA to make movies. He doesn't even want to be here anymore. The Lakers should trade LeBron. He heard all that noise. He created the narrative. Wash King. Oh, I don't have it anymore? Watch what I'm going to do. Really? I got Anthony Davis by my side right now? Okay, watch what happens. Yeah, he led the league in assists, had an MVP caliber season. The Lakers won the NBA championship. He wins Finals MVP under his watch. That's what happens when they try to knock him down and says, hey, I'm still here. Tom Brady had probably the worst year of his career in 2019. He had 24 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. That's where the media started to say, Brady's washed. Belichick was right. He should have kept Garoppolo and got rid of Brady. Brady should just retire. Him going to Tampa Bay is the Jordan going to the Wizards. Brady heard that noise. He felt it. Say, really? Watch this. Watch what I do in Tampa Bay. Throws for 43 touchdowns. Now wins Super Bowl MVP. Had a fantastic season after all the haters and all the doubters really stopped with him. I think Mahomes is that dude. Now Mahomes hears the pressure that, oh, he's overrated. Brady's better than him. He could never catch Brady as the GOAT. He's not worth the contract. I think he hears that noise. I think it's going to light a fire under his skin. And I think that they poke the bear, and the bear is going to bite back. I think Mahomes is going to come back with a vengeance. I think Mahomes is going to win MVP this year. And I think the Chiefs will be right back in the Super Bowl where they belong. Because I really don't think there's any teams in the AFC that can compete with them. And then in terms of one game, if they're healthy, if Mahomes is doing his thing, there's no reason why the MVP of the league, the best player in the league, with that loaded offense and a great coach in Andy Reid shouldn't be the favorites.
You know what? I love that narrative. I've used that narrative for years, and I feel like you gave me a dose of my own medicine because I've used that narrative with Tom Brady for so long. And if you look back at the length of TB12's career, he's an astronomical 41-9 or 41-6 the game after a loss, all regular season and playoffs included here. But to me, as a fantasy football player and a DFS guy, all we have to go on is, what have you done for me lately? And all we have to go on is based on, last year's ranks, right? Ranks, points, and results. That's all we really have to go on. So if you take last season or the season before or what TB has done in his career, that's all so if we look ahead, I don't have a crystal ball. So we use all those numbers and narratives to kind of paint a picture for ourselves to give to other people or to say it out loud. And again, what we've seen from Tom Brady in Tampa Bay here, they've done nothing to kind of dispel or make me worried or make me nervous about what they can do this coming season. So in a way, I agree with you 100% about the narrative of Patrick Mahomes and everything, but it's just so hard and it's so tough for me to get away from, the most recent kind of results and ranks.
For sure, I understand where you're coming from. That makes sense. But overall, that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you again for everyone who tuned in to another edition of the Falco Takeaway. Chris, always a pleasure talking sports. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I'll talk to you.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.